Small businesses are doing more online than ever before, serving customers, managing finances, and running entire operations in the cloud. That convenience is amazing, but it comes with a hidden challenge. Protecting your business if something goes wrong. Cyber insurance can be a powerful safety net, but here's the problem. Many business owners don't realize their coverage has gaps until it's too late. If you ever wondered, do I really need cyber insurance? And how do I know what it actually covers? Well, you're in the right place. Today, I'm going to be breaking down how cyber insurance works, what it protects, and some of what it doesn't. And I'm going to talk about some steps you can take to help choose a policy that actually helps to protect your business. Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Kanet. I'm the CEO and founder of iTernal Networks. And here at iTernal Networks, we believe in empowering businesses and individuals with the knowledge that they need to succeed. So every Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, I go live on all of our socials to discuss different topics around IT, cybersecurity, and AI to help empower fellow businesses. These live streams are really aimed to help others to feel more confident in their knowledge of business technology and cybersecurity. At iTernal Networks, we're dedicated to creating safe and secure environments for businesses and people to do what they love and to thrive. And staying educated on technology is a big part of that. At the end of the live stream, I will leave time to answer any questions from the audience. So if you have them as we go, throw them in the comments and we'll make sure to look at those and chat about them at the end. That being said, let's get on to today's topic. Let's start with the big question. Why is cyber insurance so important? A lot of small business owners assume that hackers are only going after the big companies, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, a report from IBM in 2023 indicates that 43% of all cyber attacks are now targeting small to mid-sized businesses. And we're seeing some stuff in some recent reports indicates that that might be increasing even more. And the average cost of a breach is nearly $3 million. Now, that's across the board, right? Large and small. But it's not, nobody wants to recover from a breach, whether it's $3 million or whether it's $50,000. These criminals understand their targets as they go after them. They understand what they can ask for, what they're more likely to get from the attack. And that's what they're going to go after. So whatever's going to be painful to you, that's what they're going to ask for in the ransom. It's not what anybody wants to go through, right? Cyber criminals know that these smaller businesses often have weaker defenses, and they're okay going after these smaller businesses, knowing they're going to get less money from them, because if it's an easier target, they can get more of them, which then add up to billions and billions of dollars, which is what the cyber crime is annually. So these criminals are going after small businesses more and more. They're using phishing, they're using ransomware, they're even using supply chain attacks at times to break into these small businesses. At the same time, right, the threats are increasing. Businesses are also facing increasing regulatory requirements for privacy and data protection, and growing customer expectations for data protection, right? Your customers are expecting you to protect their data, and they should. While cyber insurance doesn't make you compliant with any of these regulations and doesn't magically protect the data, it can help you to cover costs and support your recovery if a breach does occur, including legal expenses, notification requirements, and business interruption. But not all cyber insurance is created equal. I'm hoping that you'll understand that a little bit better after today's conversation of what cyber insurance can and can't do and what your business might need. So let's start off with talking a little bit about what cyber insurance covers. I do want to point out cyber insurance policies vary widely in what they cover, how much they cover, and the different exclusions that they include. So make sure that you're always reviewing your specific policy details and requirements with your insurance agent to confirm what is and isn't included. What I'm going to discuss are things that we typically see as options for coverage, not necessarily what is included in your policy. Cyber insurance typically falls into two main categories. First-party coverage, which is coverage that protects your business from the direct costs of a cyber incident, and third-party liability coverage, which protects you when other people or organizations are harmed by the incident and holds you responsible. So let's talk a little bit about each of those. First-party coverage, some examples of what first-party coverage are, is breach response and crisis management. Now, in the event of a breach, this would cover the forensic, legal help, customer notifications, and credit monitoring, right? If your customer's data is breached and these criminals now have access to their social security numbers and other personal information, you're legally required to provide credit monitoring and notifications to all these clients, and that cost can add up. So that's what's covered in this part of the first. The second part is business interruptions, which pays for lost revenue when your systems go down. Next, ransomware and extortion. Not all insurance policies include this anymore, so make sure you're asking about this. But ransomware and extortion in your policy can help negotiate or pay ransom demands to restore the data in the case of a ransomware attack. Data recovery is another type. This would cover the costs to repair or replace lost files and software. So if you need to completely wipe all of your systems and recover and then reload the data from backups, those labor costs would be covered under the data recovery section here. And then a big one here is reputation management. This is where public relations comes in to help to rebuild trust with customers and with the public. All right, now let's talk about the third-party liability coverage. This would include privacy liability, which can cover the legal costs and settlements when customers or vendor data is compromised. Regulatory penalties, they can help with legal defense and fines for violations of laws like HIPAA or GDPR or PCI. Another type of third-party protection is media liability. So this would protect against claims related to online content or intellectual property exposure. And then along with all of these is the legal defense and settlement costs, right? Where the insurance would help to pay the attorney fees and the court costs if you are sued. And I shouldn't say if you're sued, it's when you're sued, because if there's a breach, chances are you're going to be sued. There's some other optional add-ons that you might consider adding, depending on your business and your risks and what your needs are. These are not always covered in the policies, but can typically be added as an add-on. Social engineering fraud coverage. This would cover losses when your employees are tricked into sending money or data. It's important to note that if this is an add-on for your policy, then that means it's not included in the base policy. We're seeing that that's one of the highest methods of attack right now. So if that's not included, that's a huge gap in your coverage that you would want to evaluate. Hardware bricking is another thing where this would pay to replace devices that were destroyed by malware. Technology errors and omissions would protect, if you're developing software and other things, this would protect you against client lawsuits. So this is a very niche, right? It may not apply to many of you, but if you're a service provider or software developer and you're providing additional services to others or reselling some of your services to others, then you would want to make sure that you have that added to your policy. And reputational harm coverage. I did mention this briefly as part of our first party recovery options. Make sure it's included in there. That's not an add-on. This is where it would help to fund long-term trust building after a breach. Contingent business interruption is another add-on that would help to cover you if one of your vendors is attacked and your operations are disrupted as a result of that. So not that your systems were attacked and you're taken down, but that one of your vendors was. So let's assume that you're using Microsoft 365 and they're attacked and their emails are down for an extended period of time, which then impacts your business. This add-on could help cover the costs that disrupt your business related to that other vendor. So these add-ons help to close coverage gaps that you might not even realize exist. I also want to point out, since we're talking about what's covered, before we get into what's not covered, coverage limits vary widely between policies. And in many cases that I've seen, they're not enough to fully cover a breach, especially if sensitive data is involved. The amount of coverage you need should be based on how much data you store, the types of data, right? How sensitive it is, how critical your systems are, and the potential cost of recovery. A cybersecurity risk assessment can help to estimate that exposure and guide you in choosing appropriate coverage levels. If you have an add-on to your business policy that's just like a $50,000 cybersecurity add-on that will cover $50,000 in the event of a breach, that's probably not going to go very far when you start getting forensics involved and legal teams involved and having to reach out and respond and PR and all of the things that come into breach mitigation and response. So you got to take all that into consideration when you're looking at those levels of what's being covered. All right, let's talk a little bit now about what's typically not covered. Now, cyber insurance is not a free pass. It's not just I have cyber insurance, I don't need to worry about fill in the blank, antivirus, backing up my data. I don't need to worry about any of the protections because if I get breached, cyber insurance will cover me. It's not that way. Just like with other types of insurance, if you're not meeting their minimum requirements, you could be denied coverage when a breach happens. So let's talk a little bit about some common exclusions. First of all, and this is the biggest one, negligence. If you're skipping updates, ignoring warnings, or don't use basic protections like MFA or multi-factor authentication, your claim could be and most likely will be denied. Cyber insurance applications ask specific questions about cybersecurity that you have in place. And if you say you have MFA everywhere and then you're breached because you didn't have MFA, you're not doing what you said on your application. Or maybe it's not on the application, but it's specifically listed in your policy. If you're not doing all of those steps that you said you were, your claim could be and most likely will be denied. Also, they're not going to cover pre-existing incidents. If you're in the middle of an attack and you go sign up for a cyber insurance policy, guess what? That attack started before the policy began. That's not going to be covered. State-sponsored attacks is another one that's typically excluded as acts of war, that includes cyber attacks by foreign governments. Even if we're not at war with China or Russia or some of the other, Iran, the other countries out there, if they are the ones attacking your business, it may not be covered. I have seen options for insurance writers to cover this, but typically it's not included by default. Insider threats is another one. So malicious activity by employees or contractors. So you have a disgruntled employee that does something that causes the breach. That's not always covered unless you have a rider as well. And then the long-term reputational damage, I mentioned that as an optional add-on. Insurance can help with the immediate public relations costs, but not months and months of lost revenue. So just keep in mind that limitation. Also, certain fines might be excluded. There are some regulatory penalties, especially in the EU, might not be insurable depending on the law. So that's where you're going to have to talk with your insurance agent, really dig in there and look at what your regulations are for your industry and make sure that you understand what is and is not being covered. This is why reviewing the fine print in your policy is so important and talking with your insurance agent. All right. I probably didn't cover everything. That's the bulk of it, right? So let's talk now a little bit about how to choose the right cyber insurance policy for your organization. So I'm going to give you a series of steps here, kind of a quick checklist to help you to shop smartly for your cyber insurance. First, you got to know your risk profile. What kind of data do you store? How much do you rely on digital systems? What would a breach actually cost you? What regulations do you have to meet? We've actually seen, it across the industry where if you need to meet HIPAA requirements and you're not, and you're breached, Even if you meet all of the requirements of your insurance policy, they may not pay out because you're not following the requirements of your industry and federal regulations. So it's important to understand that as well. What regulations, requirements do you have for your industry? So all of this needs to be taken into consideration. And this is where, as I mentioned earlier, a cybersecurity risk assessment could come in and help to determine what the risks are that you need to be insured for. If you're interested in one of those, please reach out to me and we can happily help you out with that. All right, the next step as you're evaluating cyber insurance is making sure that you're asking the right questions. What's covered? What's not covered? What's excluded? Are there waiting periods? Can you add riders for social engineering or reputational harm or acts of war? Evaluate all these things and talk about these questions with your agent to make sure that you know all of the available options and can make a determination based on that risk factor. All right, next step, number 3, work with experts. Not every insurance agent understands cyber insurance. I've talked with some and they've been very upfront with me. They're like, yeah, we sell them, but we don't really know much about them. If your insurance agent doesn't really know much about cyber insurance, find one that does. Now, I'm not saying move all of your insurance away from your agent. No, if you've got one that you know and trust, stay with them for all of your other coverage. But when it comes to cyber insurance, it's a specialty. And you want to make sure that you're talking with an agent and a broker who specializes in cyber insurance and a cybersecurity consultant who truly understands your systems and your risk and can help guide you through that. All right, number 4 on the checklist here. Check your coverage limits. I already mentioned this, but make sure that your limits reflect worst case scenarios, not just the bare minimum. You'd hate to assume you have enough coverage only to find out in the breach where you're already stressed out that you're far short of what the recovery is actually going to cost. All right, number 5, review your cyber insurance terms annually. Cyber risks evolve, sometimes quickly. Make sure that your policy evolves as well. Make sure you understand what changes. Every year when your renewal comes out, something's going to change in that policy. They're not going to keep it the same. They might add something, they might remove something. So make sure that you understand annually at renewal time what's going on and that your policy still applies for your risk factor. And then number 6, you need to make sure that you have cyber insurance paired with a solid response plan. The insurance is there as like a parachute, right? To pull in case of emergency. Make sure you know how to respond to that, right? Who do you call? If there's a breach, time is of the essence. Who does the insurance want you working with for forensics? How does the insurance want you to handle the legal aspects of it? Make sure that you have all these things documented as part of a solid incident response plan so that you and your team know how to respond, and then make sure that your policy supports that plan. Talk with your agent again. Call them up and say, hey, we're just going through our incident response plan. We want to make sure that this is the right people to contact. They will gladly provide that information to you and probably compliment you for being so proactive. All right. Cyber insurance really should not be optional. It should be considered essential. But having the wrong policy can be just as dangerous as having none at all, because it can give you a false sense of security. If you're unsure about what kind of coverage your business actually needs or whether your current policy is up to the task, I'd love to help you figure it out. I've worked with countless business owners to evaluate their risks, help them to choose protections, and put strong cybersecurity practices in place so that their coverage really works alongside with their security when it matters. Now, I'm not an insurance agent or broker. I can't sell you insurance. I get no commissions off of any referrals or anything. Just need to tell you that up front. But I do have a network of specialists that I can refer you to that specialize in cyber insurance to get you the coverage that you need. So if you have any questions on that, please reach out. You can schedule a one-on-one consultation with me using the link in the chat or on the video description. Let's make sure that you and your business, your livelihood, is truly protected before something happens. All right, let's see if there's any questions or comments from our live audience here. I'm not seeing anything from the audience today. If you do have any questions, please let us know. Just post them in the comments. We'll respond to them after the fact. I do want to thank you for listening, for joining. Hopefully you found this information helpful. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Right? Leave a comment. Let us know any thoughts that you might have. Your feedback helps us to create more content that's valuable to you. And also don't forget, you can subscribe to our channels by hitting that notification icon to get updates when we post new content. Remember, knowledge is power, and we're here to help you to navigate the world of technology and cybersecurity. If you need any further assistance, like I said, reach out to me via direct message. You can schedule that one-on-one consultation with me, or you can reach out to us via phone or email. All of our contact information is online at our website at itnet.works. Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week.